Let's bow our heads and say a prayer, a silent prayer for Tina and her family, please. Lord, we ask you to be with Tina and her son Chris and his family at this sad time. We ask you that you protect her and guide her, and know that we all love her. Amen. The workshop, Ms. McKinnon is not present, Ms. Graham is not present, and Ms. Bullock is not present. The attorney indicated that since this isn't an action meeting and no action will be taken, that since it was a duly advertised meeting, that we will continue with the workshop. Okay, review the 2013-14, 2014-15 fiscal year budgets. Dr. Copeland. Oh, and if anyone does want to speak, our policy, we won't do the green cards, you could just hold your hand up, but our policy says that if you speak at a workshop, it's to ask questions. So if you've got something you want to say, put it in the form of a question, and just raise your hand if you want to speak, and I'll allow you to speak.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me just kind of quickly tell you what you have before you. It'll also be on the screen. I will have a brief review of the 13-14 school year in the general fund only, and then we'll review the 14-15 budget for Fund 100 only. I'll have a few slides. Then at that point, if you have any questions, or anytime we go through this, just ask. Stop me and ask. Then I have a brief review just on a couple of things dealing with our debt service because of the Moody's report. I just think we probably just need to just lightly go over that, and then we can go from there. Okay. Okay, this is 13-14. The bottom line is that our state revenue local revenue, federal and non-recurring, came in at $247.5 million, rounded up from 247,466,021. A couple of things that I think the board needs to understand is that our property tax came in lower than the estimate. And again, we have nothing to do with those estimates because it's based on the mill levy at the assessed value by the property appraiser at 96%. And so we budget that. Our property tax at the required local effort came in about $1.3 million short. And so that affected us significantly. We did have proration on state revenue as it relates to the FEFP. And so, of course, I think over the years we're somewhat accustomed to that because what we budget in the FEFP normally doesn't always come in at that amount, and generally it's less than that. And we just adjust. The next slide is the question. Did I hear someone? The next slide are the total expenses for the general fund. And you can see the individual amounts there, 175.
We lost you. Wait.
Yes. Okay, thanks. You can see that our employee benefits of $41.3 million and our operating expenses of $30.3. I'll have that broken out by object code that you can also see. So the bottom line is that our revenue exceeded our expenses, and we actually increased our fund balance to $43,515. Which was ending at 2.24%. We began the year at the beginning of July 2013 at 2.12%. So that was a good thing. In 2014-15, we have estimated the local property tax, and I'll have another slide in just a second that will tell you the breakout of that property tax. Federal revenue at 2.5, state at 188.7 million. I also passed out to you the third calculations. I'm sorry, I passed out to you the FEFP that compared the fourth calculation for 13-14 to the first calculation 14-15. Also, I gave you another calculation that compared the fourth calculation, 13-14, to the second calculation of 14-15. You can really take the one that compares fourth to the first calculation, you just set that aside, because the second calculation is really what we work with. It just, from the fourth to the first calculation, all it does is just add or subtract to get to the second calculation. This is based on the second calculation. The state revenue that relates to the FEFP is the total FEFP of that 188.7 million is about 184. It's the significant part of that, but there's a few other types of things that we receive at the state level that's not a part of the FEFP. The one important thing that I want to point out to the board is this non-recurring. You see that at 7.7 million. So remember that amount. That is significant over 13-14. and I'll come back and tell you why that number is so much larger. You can see that our expenses are at $253 million. Part of the biggest part of that would be in our salaries and benefits, about 86%. It's down a little bit, and we need to understand why. It's not 88% like 13-14, it's 86% because our school recognition money is down. It's not as much as it used to be, and most teachers take a bonus. Now that bonus will be recorded in the salaries area of the budget, and that's decreased about $600,000 or $700,000. The other significant decrease in salaries would be because now our substitute teachers are paid out of contracted services, not in salaries and no benefits. But because we contract with Kelly Services, then that $3 million in that range for substitute cost is pulled out of salaries and put into that area of operating expenses of $34 million. So when you see the slide that says what percent are benefits of salaries and benefits, for the 14-15 year it calculates at just a little over 86%. Here's a little graph that I think is helpful, and I'll let you just study it a second. Starting with the 07-08 year, you can see in red the expenses, in blue the revenue, and these are based on audited figures, all except for the 13-14 year, and obviously that has not been audited yet, but that's the estimate, and 14-15. You see 11, 12, 12, 13, that had a significant effect on our fund balance. Okay, now if you look here at the salaries and benefits, the largest expenditure in our budget, you can see those over the years. And again, you can see 14-15 at 86%, and the other years either 88 or 87%. Okay, now, if you're looking at the second calculation, yes, ma'am.
You said the salaries and benefits are 86%. Because you moved money out to cover Kelly Services. If that were back in there, would it still just be the 88%?
It would, yes,
so
ma'am.
it's just play with
Yeah.
numbers.
Well, it would actually probably be 89 because weren't we anticipating over $1 million
Microphone.
more? Yeah. Well, I mean, it would have gone even higher than last year.
Your microphone.
Oh. I'm sorry. I think that number would have actually even risen more than it was the previous year because of Obamacare and all that.
Okay.
It would have got worse than 88.
Dr. Copeland, how
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
world do we ever get that back down to around 80
Well,
without hurting,
it's tied without hurting.
without hurting,
The
I just don't know.
I think a big part of it, is because class size. I think because we hire teachers to meet class size over the years, and when enrollment falls, you still have the teacher there, and I think that's one of the reasons. Again, a part of that 88%, 87%, 86% is also due to employee benefits. A part of that is the retirement rate that's going up.
I guess, I'm just thinking, we know it needs to be less
You need
than
to get
that,
it down.
but I just don't know how to go about it. I saw your hand go up, but at some point I'll call on you after we can let her ask her question, because you might can answer it. All right.
question?
I think if you go back, that's a great question. I do know that at one time we were 81 to 82%. I think as we began to grow, as our enrollment began to grow in some of those early 2000 years, beginning of 2000, we hired a lot of people. We gave big increases. I would say that between 2007, 8, and now we've probably given $14 to $15 million in salary increases.
So you think it was before the big growth spurt hit?
I think we were
Lake
lower
County?
then.
So it could have even been in the 90s?
Well, you
late
remember,
90s?
Madam Chairman, when in the early 2000, late 1999, our fund balance was below $500,000.
Yeah, I remember those days.
So-
What year was that, the 500,000? I remember.
2000.
2000, yeah. Okay. Interesting.
You know, let's just make the assumption that it never was at 80 or 81 or 82. Let's just assume it never was. 88 is still significant.
Absolutely.
It's just, you can talk to most school districts and they'll say they need to be at 80, 81%.
Are there a lot of school districts in the state of Florida who are at 80 and 81%?
I don't know
I mean,
where they
I
are.
was just curious, you know, because they've got Obamacare and retirement rate increase and everything like us. I just wonder, are there school districts that are sitting at 80%?
My perception is that since class size reduction has come in, that you'll see those percentages rise.
Rise up.
Mhm.
Although not everybody met class size like Lake County
Well,
did.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, in the second calculation of July of 13, about a year ago, this is what our enrollment was estimated to start the year, 34,541. As we approach the fourth calculation, which you have a handout on, you will see that our enrollment increased significantly. As we start the second calculation for the current year, you can see we're down 427 students. Now, that is a significant reduction in revenue based on the base student allocation. So the board gave us the charge is to be at approximately 2.58%. As we prepared the budget based on a reduction of 427 unweighted, that it became almost impossible based on that reduction in student enrollment to be at 2.58. As we began the school year, with the kids returning to the classroom, based on the 9th day enrollment, we are up about 700.
From the
Ms.
projection.
Adams can speak to that in just a second. So to get to that 2.58%, remember that non-recurring revenue amount of 7.7 million, I think. What I have done is that I have said, okay, if we get those 700, great. I want to be at 2.58%. So I went in and put into that non-recurring revenue approximately $1,800,000, anticipating that that enrollment is going to be up 500 to 700 children. I think this is very important for us to understand. There is a risk to that. I don't think the risk is that the children aren't going to be there. I think the risk is going to be if the state does not pay us the full base student allocation based on those children. So, if we should receive full funding for about 700 children, then I think we're probably looking at $2.5 million. But what we have to remember, in this budget is $1.8 million in anticipation of receiving that in the third calculation to get to the 2.58%. So hopefully, when we get our new revenue amount in January for the rest of the year, it's going to show an increase to Clay County of about 2.5. If that does, then you can anticipate an additional $600,000 to $700,000. I don't know any other way to explain it or to say it. But it's just like estimated property tax. We estimate it what it's going to be, and we appropriate that. It's the same thing here. I am anticipating additional revenue of at least $1.8 million. But in that 2.58% is that $1.8 million. Okay, now let's compare the fourth calculation to the second calculation. You can verify those numbers in the fourth and second calculation by the handout that I gave you. And I have marked on the second calculation some of the significant numbers that relate to this chart. The bottom line is from the fourth to the second, and that's how the state reports it to you and to me, is an increase of $3.4 million. However, a part of that is a digital classroom allocation that Mr. Hendrick is applying for and trying to meet the deadline. So that needs to be pulled out. The annualized CESPA salary contract, $800,000 of that was in 13-14. The cost is $1.2 million, and is $1.2 million, so I had to appropriate an additional $400,000. And Ms. Adams can speak to the allocations of ESE, approximately $1 million. The retirement rate based on the salaries is going to be an increase of approximately $800,000. There is an amount that we absolutely must send to the self-insured fund because the actuary has said that if you don't increase it, we are going to maybe not allow you to have that fund because it's not actuarially sound, which means a significant fund balance, just like in the general fund. You need to have a fund balance in that self-insured fund for catastrophic events. Okay, here are the mill levies over since 07-08. I want to point out to you the top one there. That is the required local effort. In any particular year, if our property tax only from the required local effort does not come in based on what the state gives us, we need to always remember the state says, here's your required local effort mill levy. We have no say in that. And if that revenue does not come in based on that levy that they give us, then the next year you can see the prior period adjustment right under the required local effort. You can see in 10-11 we had 0.018 increase, 11-12 0.021, and in the current year a 0.006. That becomes the new required local effort based on that increase to hopefully catch you up what you did not generate the prior year. Here's a little bar chart that kind of shows you our assessed value, and that is in billions. So in 07-08 we were at 10.8 billion. We increased to 11 billion. We started to drop, and now we're starting to go up a little. So hopefully that's an indication that will generate more, not only in the general fund, but also in the capital outlay fund. I'm not going to spend very much time on this rollback rate. The thing that we just need to always remember is that the required local effort rollback rate determines whether or not we'll have a tax increase or not. The rollback rate was less than the required local effort mill levy. Now, the thing we need to remember, the required local effort mill levy to determine the rollback rate does not include that prior period adjustment. So even without that, we were higher than the rollback rate, so that's why we had to advertise as a tax increase. Okay, here is the last slide on the general fund. You can see the unassigned fund balance at June 30. 6/30/2007, 9.61. Next year, 8/5/2, 9.9, 12.3, 17.7, and here is where we began to drop. 8.8, 4.9, 5.4, and that 5.4 represents 2.24%. As we got into the June 30, 2013, or the 12-13 year, and we fell below 3%, that's where the rating agencies began to notice, because they receive our audited statements. And you can see that the rating agencies start to look at us very closely, and they ask us, how are you going to get back to 3%? And they really don't like 3%. To them, that's just the very minimum. They say we want at least 7%. So we've got a ways to go. And if it's not done rapidly, then they say, well, the only thing we can do is downgrade you a little, because you are creating a greater risk to meet your debt obligations. That's the theory that they follow. So if you don't have the money, then we need to notify the world, so to speak, that if that school district should go out for future debt financing, if they want it, then they're going to have to pay a higher rate to draw investors in to purchase your bonds. So, estimated at the end of 2014-15, June 30, 2015, we've estimated 2.58%. But again, that is based on $1.8 million that we're going to get, hopefully, in anticipated revenue through the FEFP. So, Madam Chairman, that concludes that review. If you'd like, I'll proceed right on, and I'd like to maybe then proceed to let you know that I did receive the Moody's report, and they have downgraded us a little. If you'll look at the little attachment where I've done it on pink to help us understand what a AA3 is to an A1.
I'm glad you got that, because I was sitting here thinking, I hope he explains that.
There are two ratings. One is on the total long-term debt. The total long-term debt. If you look at the report, and let's just read the opinion. Moody's Investors Service has downgraded to A1 from A or AA3 Clay County School District's long-term rating. So on the long-term basis, on all of our debt, they have downgraded us. All right? So really, what does that mean? So if you look at on the pink that I've highlighted, for long-term rating, a AA3. And a AA is that, in their interpretation, obligations rated AA are judged to be of high quality and are subject to very low credit risk. Then they attach a 3 to it. And the 3, if you look down below the line, it says 3 indicates a ranking in the lower end of that generic rating category. So it's just a little, you're just a little worse
Yeah.
than a AA. But it dropped to an A1. Well, what is an A then? An A is obligations rated A are judged to be upper medium grade and are subject to low credit risk, but it's a 1 next to it. And the 1 indicates that the obligation ranks in the higher end of its generic rating category. Now,
This is kind of like an A minus and a B
yeah.
plus.
All right, then they downgraded us in another area. That area deals just specifically with the COPs, the certificates of participation. We were at an A1, and I've read you what an A1 is, but they said we're going to lower you to an A2.
Because of our fund balance being as low as it
Yes,
is.
everything relates to our fund balance.
And did it, I mean, you told them that we've got a 2-year plan, right?
I told them that the board is committed to be at 3% for June 2016. And that's what the state has allowed us to do.
And that didn't.
That did not do it because they want it faster, and they look at the salaries that we have provided in the last couple of years, and they took that into consideration, and they also took into consideration with increased salaries, you will also have now a higher retirement rate. That puts a greater burden on the school district, and as a matter of fact, you can see on the second page at the bottom, elevated pension liability. That is based on increasing salaries and an increased retirement rate. So that's a negative to them.
I want to ask you something. On the COP debt, back a month or so ago when we were talking, you had told me, I remember the number 82, but that it had been 100 million and then we had gotten down to 82, but now this is saying 51. So what do we owe?
We
on
owe
the
54 million in
54?
in COPs.
Okay,
Matter
well,
of fact,
what makes up the rest to get us to 82?
okay, here it is right here.
Okay.
Our state school bonds at the end of June 30, 2014 is 2.9 million, almost 3 million. In our special act bonds, which is the racetrack, that's at 3.9 million total. Our COPs, the principal, is at 54 million. With the interest, it's 72. So now, at June 30, 2014, we are at 78 million. I remember we used to be 105.
Yeah,
So-
and then I think when we talked back a while, it was like 80, 82.
At that point.
something. But, so we're gradually getting
We
it,
made
but
another payment.
It's just, ooh.
So that's really what I wanted to point out as far as the debt service and the Moody's rating. And you can judge for yourself by their AA3 to A1 and A1 to A2. They said also at the bottom of the second page, what could change the rating up? Substantial improvement in reserves. That's what they want. If we want to change that rating, we need to increase that.
Okay.
So that's our challenge. Now, when I come on the 18th, none of this will change, but for the general fund, because our cutoff is tomorrow, the amounts that I have for 14-15 may change just a little bit, because I actually took Tuesday and Wednesday's totals at that time to develop this presentation. So that's it, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Since we have such a huge audience, let me see if there's any questions before you sit down, Dr. Copeland. Yes, question? And do they need to come to the mic? You need to come up. But we're recording. At least get close enough that it can pick it up.
Okay. My question, Dr. Copeland, is there's an increase of 700 students, and you're saying 2.4 million, that equates to about $2.4 million, but isn't the base allocation 6,000 per student, 6,000 something?
No, ma'am, it isn't.
Okay. Did you tell me?
Yep, come right here by me. We're going to do this together,
Okay.
because we are together. Base student allocation is $4,000.
Okay.
After the DCD, it's $4,004.
Okay.
So you take that amount times the weighted FTE, so then the question is over these, and I'm assuming 700. Now, you're going to hold me to that 700.
I
If
am.
it comes in at
Yeah.
at
It's our rate.
688,
It's important.
I am in trouble. But anyway, assuming 700, you would take, then you have to weight those students.
Okay.
That weighting may be 750 additional. So you take that times the 4,004, which is after the district cost differential, and then that's the base funding we would receive.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
that's a good question.
Okay. Any other questions before we proceed? Okay. So you're not going to get into the...
Would you like to answer the 6,000?
Because that's what we get.
What?
I mean, that's what I'm reading.
Let's get a mic.
All right, the 4,000 is just on the state portion. If you take into consideration the... I'll read from your copy. If you look down...
Go back to the microphone.
Second.
The microphone. We're recording, or trying to.
If you look at the handout that shows the fourth calculation and the second calculation.
Okay.
You look at 3/4 down, you see total FEFP state funding of $186,247,184.
Yes, sir.
That is based on the 4,000. There are other calculations that you have to consider. But what you have to do then to get to the 6,000 plus is add the local effort. The local effort being the required local effort and the discretionary local effort, which totals $52,471,000. When you add that in with the state portion, then you get the 6,000. That is the funding per pupil based on the FEFP. That's
We got two different forms here. Okay. So this is what you showing us, but
I
this
am.
is what added in with the local effort. So the fourth calculation was 6,676, and the second calculation was 6,800. So there's an increase because you put an increase of $200 on there, right? 176.
Yeah. Well, it's
Okay.
179.
I'm sorry, 179.80.
Right.
So what I don't understand is, why isn't that the multiple? Why is it 4,000? If you do the 4,000 and with 2,000 with the local effort, shouldn't it be times $6,856 per student?
That's it.
I mean, that's what we had, that's what the state has said.
What is the state saying?
The state is saying on the second calculation, $6,856.26 per student.
All right, stay right here. What the state is saying is we, the state, is funding $4,000 per student. The local area, local county,
Right.
they're funding the difference through
2,000.
property tax.
Okay.
And that's all it is saying. You
Ah.
can go look at every school district, and it's right there in the FEFP of what they generate. You're going to find some school districts generate a huge amount in the discretionary local effort,
Like St. John?
like St. John's. So
Okay.
their amount is going to be up significantly.
Okay.
Ms.
So we say, how come then Clay County doesn't do the same thing as St. John's? Is because they got a different significant increase in local funding than Clay.
Okay.
There's the problem.
If I understand the question, Ms. Paiva, the state, if we gain children through the course of the year and they show up in the first and second count, they will pay us more per child. However, if everybody in the state gets more children, the amount they pay us more per child will go down because they don't go reallocate that pot of money. But at the local level, we assess and we get whatever our ad valorem property taxes are based on that mill levy per everybody's property values. And nobody strokes us a check from the courthouse if we have 35,300 instead of 35,000. The property value didn't go up, we just got more kids, so that money just gets spread out over more kids. That other 2,000 something dollars per child isn't really per child, that's just really what the property
So
tax value was.
anything that's over is only going to be the 4,000 number
Yes,
and
ma'am.
not the 6,000 number.
Correct.
Am I right? Is
Yeah.
that right? What I'm saying is, this is the calculation, this $6,856 is a calculation that the state gave us, judged on how many kids we were getting. But when we increase to 700 kids, then it's at 4,000 is what you're calculating, and not 6,000.
Now apply it to real life. What does that mean?
If I get my yacht,
Okay.
I don't know.
You'll call me.
We'll go find that tips that we were talking about.
The local property tax would be the local property tax if we had 10,000 kids or
Doesn't
100,000 kids.
matter how many kids.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And let's not forget, they dinged us 900,000 at the end of this year in because of property, a shortfall. So, I
So
mean,
did they take that back?
No, no.
wait, no, they estimated we would get, we've been counting on that 900,000. At the end, they said, oops, we didn't get it all, so
Sorry, Charlie.
It's important to understand that she is referring now to is the Department of Revenue,
Right.
which told us, and every other county in Florida, you do at least this much local effort or thou shalt not have 100% of the Florida Education Finance Program. So they underestimated our property value.
thank you. Those are good questions.
You know what? I'm kind of glad there's only two here and that it's a small crowd, because I think we can get some things worked out so that you understand and you can actually talk, and we're all trying to make sense out of this craziness.
Yeah.
Tell them, we talk all the time.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. All right, so where do you want to proceed, Dr. Copeland? Okay, are you through? We're not going to do debt service and all that other big stuff.
That's all I needed.
Okay. Ms. Karakas, I'll bring this to the board. Since
Well,
you're the
I
board,
think Ms. Adams wanted
did you want to say
talk
something,
about-
Ms. Adams?
Well, yeah,
Okay,
but not much.
okay.
I'm just excited to hear that you feel that the numbers are up.
Well, I'm excited about that too, but I want to be cautious. You know, I'm cautiously optimistic, just as we're marching toward class size and all those other little things that we say. I want to speak to the 88% that we spend on people.
Right.
We are a people business, okay? So it makes sense that we spend our money on people, because it takes people to do our people business. The thing I think we have to think about, and the thing I think I would challenge this board to consider if you want to reduce that 88% in the future, is probably prior to the allocation process, prior to us saying we're going to have this many of this and this many of that, is we need to look at the services that we provide in our district and make some decisions, because truly, and again, what I'm saying, I mean no disrespect by this, because I'm very proud of what we've done here. We provide a high level of service here. We have low class sizes. We still offer resource classes in elementary schools. Many districts do not. Many districts get resource class once every 11 days, if at all. We have nurses in every school. In some schools we have more than one. In some schools we have 3. We have social workers. Some districts have none. We don't think we have enough. We have school psychologists. I know we even added one this year. I think probably we paid for it out of Medicaid. And I can't remember the number that we have, but I can tell you other school districts, they envy our staffing level in terms of our service delivery. And I make no apologies for it. We are proud. We know we are famous for the services that we provide. So that's why we have an 88%. I mean, truly. Out of our 5,000 employees, 2,700, what was it, Ms. Butler? 76.4 were teachers. 1,600 and something, about almost less than 1,800 were support. And there's like, what do we say, 160, or is it 160, 159, 160, 60 administrators. We are a people business. So if we're going to dial it back, you know, you compare our salaries with other salaries around the state too. We're competitive with St. John's and with Duval, with our, you know, the people we like to keep up with and be competitive with. So it really boils down to the level of service that you want to provide. Truly it does. The other thing I want to mention is our enrollment. When we're talking about, I am proud to say we've taken our 3 counts. I have to congratulate secondary. They were really the ones that show the big overage. They would say that's because I cut them too deeply when we did projections. But again, I want to remind you that projection was really guided by what the state said we had to do last December. Elementary came in on last count just 77 over our projection. Secondary was it was 600 and something, so the total was like 774. But that's a raw number, you know, that's not true FTE. And now that they calibrate, so I can't tell you we've got a true 770 kid increase. It's not even Labor Day yet. We know we'll get more kids then. The only secondary school that was really, really low is Orange Park Junior. It only has 635 kids. That was the one under projection. We have several elementary schools that are small. I'm talking 500, 400 and something.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So instructional revision has done an excellent job going in and evaluating, looking at class size. We've tried to move teachers sooner rather than later. So we've made those moves. We think we've adjusted for that. And then I gave you a draft of what we're doing for September 19th board meeting that shows the shifts and then the ads. So out of all that, to only have what is it boiled down to, 199,000?
199,100.
And a lot of that is attributed to the .128s that we've done at the secondary level, which is, we think, a win-win. Teachers want to do it. It's an extra $7,000 a year for them to teach one more period, and that helps us meet class size. Right.
Now, are we with this? Are we at class size all throughout the district? Because I had
at the moment
from somebody, they were fussing about. I forget. I don't even remember what grade it was. It was one of the lower grades at Coppergate. Is it balanced out? or,
Well, Coppergate was extreme. They were probably fussing because we had to take, I don't know if it shows on that sheet, we took 1 or 2 teachers. I know we took a kindergarten teacher.
Very low.
They were like 11 in a classroom in
two
kindergarten.
basic teachers deleted?
Was that from Coppergate?
CGE, yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am. But yeah, we didn't take a teacher and make them go over. So, yeah, they balanced.
Okay, so we're at class size all the way through.
But you know, that changes every day.
Well, that's true, because like you say, some people are gonna come after Labor Day, no
Mhm.
matter what you do. Okay, so this will be coming to us at the next meeting?
That'll come in September to you, and it'll probably change again.
Okay.
So,
Any questions, Ms. Caracas?
No, everybody covered it all really well. I'd just like to say thank you to Dr. Copeland and your staff for putting this together. I know not everybody wanted to have a workshop, but I think it really is important that we do have it. And for, of course, we only have 4 people, 5 people in the audience, but maybe there's some at home watching. And I think it's important that we have it and everything be explained. And if somebody wants to go back and look, they can. So thank you for doing it. You did a very good job. Appreciate it.
Okay, superintendent request and no school board request, then the workshop is adjourned. George, thank you so much.